that wasn't a process. It was oh, I'm having a child. I didn't have that plan. I didn't, as far as like the maternity leave, that was non existent. I was on set 16-hour days. I got my master's while I was pregnant, right before I delivered. My child truly needed the best of who I can be. So pursuing my career was the best of who I could be. And that was actually when I started my relationship with God.
Watch me fly. We do it all. Rise up strong even when we fall. Dreams in our hands, love in our hearts.
Welcome to Baby Bump and Business, the podcast for creative moms growing a baby and a brand at the same time. I'm your host, B. Troford Wilson, photographer, educator, and first-time mom, sharing the real unfiltered journey of pregnancy, entrepreneurship, and everything in between. Each week, I'll be joined by a fellow creative mom to talk about beauty, the burnout, and the balance of it all. So let's get into it. Today's guest is Carmen Estevez. Carmen, aka Professor E, is a professor of design and tech and the founder of a global agency specializing in identity infrastructure for brands like the NFL, Netflix, and Forbes. As a mother to a 14-year-old scholar, she helps entrepreneurs bridge the gap between high-level creative and the automated systems needed to scale a legacy without the burnout. She specializes in building institutional-grade brand architectures that drive measurable growth and long-term engagement. Carmen, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Me too. So we met way back when. We want to, of course, we got to shout out to Derek Blanks because he brought so
Derek
many
Blanks,
amazing.
thank you.
Brought
Yeah.
so many amazing creatives together. So let's go back. So what were you doing at that time when we first met?
When we first met, I was a student at the Art Institute of Atlanta, and I was doing a lot of work with Derek Blanks at the time. This is before everything became everything. And I was going for digital filmmaking. I don't think I wasn't a mom at that time. I wasn't a mom at that. But my focus at that time was film and television, producing, directing. I did a lot of assistant directing with Derek Blanks, such a genius mind. And then also at that time, I was doing a lot of casting and assistant directing for music videos with Lisa Cunningham. It was so much going on at that time. So that's where I was.
Yeah, and it seemed like you were a jack of all trades. Like you had your hand in almost everything. Like we always saw Carmen on set.
Hey, girl, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, girl, I'm doing audio this time. What you doing? I'm doing assistant directing. You know what? My mentor at the time was my grandfather. So he kind of like drove in me that whole do it all, but not in a sense to kill yourself, like just overdo it. But like he was like, if you want to be a producer, you want to be a director, you want to get into film and technology, learn all the parts. So it makes the vision of everything that you do like just fluid. So that's what I did. That's why you saw me on this set, that set, writing, producing. I eventually went to the music industry. I was the writer's producer. It was crazy as much as I did, but I literally honed that word, of mentorship, and I did it all young. Yeah.
Beautiful. So while you were in the midst of doing it all, when did motherhood come into play?
Motherhood came into I was 25. I don't want to tell my age, girl. You're not about to get me to tell my age. Okay, no.
No. We don't need no numbers.
No, but I was shortly after I graduated, and I had a really successful run as far as film and television, the music industry. That's when I was like, you know what? I got that bug, but it was a different bug. It was like, I am doing a lot. I felt like I was successful, not just for the credibility, the accolades, but I had accomplished so much that I'm like, I see all my friends who weren't in entertainment and in music and film, they were married with kids. And I'm like, I'm not even dating. Like, what are we doing? So I realized, Carmen, you might need to start thinking about your future, your family, a family that's going to sustain, not this working on set 16-hour days. That's amazing, but I that's when I started to think about, like, I want a family. I want my little a little me somewhere.
And so while you're in the midst of being a jack of all trades and doing so much, what was the plan for that mindset of, okay, I want to go into motherhood. Do I need to plan maternity leave? What was that process like for you?
That wasn't a process. It was oh, I'm having a child. You act like, oh, and I want to be, I think the thing about, career success and how the idea of how people look at life and living, the truth of the matter is, sometimes you don't plan and it happens. Life happens. So I did not have the plan as much as I would want to sound all perfect and put together. I didn't have that plan. I didn't, as far as like the maternity leave, that was non-existent. I was on set 16-hour days. So traditionally, as an entrepreneur, you're not covered. You That's not a part of your plan. It's, oh, you're pregnant, let's work until your feet swell, and then you can't work, and then you got to figure it out.
Right.
That was the plan. And ultimately, my mom was alive at that time. I had a support system that was so excited that I was, becoming a mother. And so it worked out. But did I have a plan? No. It was, I'm going to work, I'm going to create. The only plan that I did have was, because I had the mentor, my grandfather, and the mother that I had, it was, what's your long term? What are you going to do after this? Because, okay, you're going to have a newborn. That's going to take away from your time on sets or
Right.
your time creating. So what I realized was, oh, yeah, you're right. I ended up coming up with this plan to get my master's and further my education, because I said, even though I didn't want that defeatist mindset of my son, my child was going to derail what I was working towards, I knew that I needed a backup plan, or a plan that would really give me solid, footing in a career. So I furthered my education and I got my master's while I was pregnant, right before I delivered. So that was fun.
So what was that journey like? Because,
Girl.
still working on set is one thing, but then going back to school is another, while going through all the hormones, the first and second trimester.
Yes, yeah, but the I think it all worked out. When I say and I talk about my belief in God, how he literally just covered me. Um, that was one of those. It was, I wasn't even so far in my relationship with God at that time that even then he was, giving me these ideas, and I'm thinking, oh, it's my brilliance. It was not. Um, but I did it online. I was able to receive my master's from Full Sail University, and I did that online, and it catapulted everything for me. Honestly, that idea, that inkling to further my education while I was pregnant, because I literally couldn't be on set, I couldn't do a lot of those things. Um, it was the best decision that I made. Henceforth, why I'm a professor now. Had I not taken that time to get that degree then in raising my son, I don't know when I would have ever had that time to do it. So that process for me was, I would say, was a blessing, because I did it online. I had a supportive family. So, I know that's not like your traditional story, but my mother, she literally put my feet up. She fed me grapes. I had every food you could imagine. you and I had that support system. So just grateful. And I'm so glad that I had my grandfather mentorship, um, and great friendships that kind of, made me think about things outside of just what I was dealing with at that moment. So,
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
So after you had your handsome son, what was that transition like from like that the infant, that newborn stage, right? Because they always say like that's one of the hardest stages of going into that transition. So now that you have your degree, or did you
Okay.
go back on set? What was that transition like for you?
I did a little bit of all of it. First, I was just so excited to, I must say this. I remember when I was probably 8, 9 months, and I don't know if any mom has done this. I don't know if you've done this, but I would remember looking in the mirror and imagining what he would look like and who he would be, and like knowing that on the other side of this in 2 weeks, I am literally, my life will be changed. And I could remember up until, my water broke, of looking in the mirror and like thinking about, like, even me at this moment now, like what my future would be, who this little boy would become, and how my life would transition. And it was all positive. I was so excited. So when he actually came, me and my mom were very close. We even before well before he came, I remember my mom would lay down in the bed, and I had my big belly, and I would lay on my side, and we would do like this, like this excitement, like he's gonna be here in 2 weeks. And I would look at her, and mm, we were just so excited. We were so excited. And my mom told me then, she said, "Look, I'm so excited, and I got you, and I want you to go back on set. I know you're doing, she knew at the time I was, in school." And then she actually told me, she said, "Hey, give yourself time with him, but I'm going to keep him, and you go." And at the time I was in South Carolina, and she said, "You go back." And I actually went right back to work on set. Like, I would say well, 6 to 8 months after giving birth to my son, my mom said, "No, go. You got projects, don't turn it down." She would overhear a phone call, and she'll say, "Oh, take it, take it. I got him." And she made a habit of calling me when I was on set, FaceTime, and look what he's doing, da 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 da. So that transition was, for me, my hormones were all over the place. So I'm on set. I'm hiding behind in the dressing room. I'm like, and I'm faced like, "Mommy." I'm like, "Ma, I can't do this. I'm coming back." She's like, "Nope, no, 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 no. You stay." And eventually that became our routine. I was on set. I did not miss a beat. I didn't miss a beat of pursuing my career, my education, because of my mentorship, my grandfather, and the supportive family I had, my aunts, all of it, my sister, my siblings. Yeah, it was a process, but those hormones were kind of crazy. Yeah.
But that's so beautiful, having someone that would champion your goals, like someone that's like, I got this, I have to like go out there and do that. And I think, one, I'm happy that you had that. That's such a blessing to be able to have that type of support system. And even for any mother that's out there listening, knowing that it's okay to continue pursuing and chasing your goals. Like,
It is
motherhood
okay.
does not have to stop that.
It doesn't. And you know what? I want to add to that, because when I even hear myself and how blessed I was in my, you know, becoming a mother, yeah, it was tough. It still was tough. And you have to think the sacrifices. So if it wasn't me making the sacrifice for my son, someone else is making it for you. My mom had to sacrifice, my grandfather, my whole family rallied behind me because they believed in me. And where that the idea of it sounds like, oh, how the privilege, or it's a blessing. And the reason why I say it's a blessing is because standing in a moment where I don't have my mother, I lost her in 2016, very young. She was 53 to cancer. Um, in the moment when I had her, I was so grateful that I was grateful then because I didn't know how long I would have my support. So you got to think 2016, my son is 4 or 5 years old. I'm completely by myself. Literally, all my support system was gone. And I say that because, sometimes we have to backtrack on that story. We hear bits and pieces of everybody's blessing, but you don't hear the wilderness. So I started off with a firm foundation and completely grateful until I got into a place where I'm like, oh, he's with me all the time. I don't have anyone to take care of him while I have to run to have this read through, or I have to be producing or engineering a session and I have to do 16 hours in the studio recording and mixing. I don't have that. That's when it hit. It was like, and even though I always showed that I was grateful, in that moment, I realized how blessed I truly was. I have an education's master's degree. I had a support system, and I literally detoured on things that I was able to see my sons first, but now I'm experiencing first, not on FaceTime, or not getting text messages, look what he did, or photos. I am literally with this kid and this personality that it was wild to me. And then that's when the transition, and I think that for me, not saying I wasn't there when I was at every milestone. So I would go to work and then I would come back. I would go to Atlanta, I would go to New York, I would do the tour and come back. So I literally caught every milestone. And the ones that I didn't catch, I would definitely, my mom would like, look, I didn't see, I called him the day he was taking his first step. So, moments like that. But I would say now I do appreciate the process that I had to go through, even though it wasn't traditional. So at 4 or 5, when my mom passed away, that was the reality, that the support system that I had at the time was completely changed. And it shocked me. And I think this is funny. You have the postpartum. Mine kicked in when my mom passed away.
Mm.
And I don't even know if that's a thing, but I felt it. Hormones, my skin, my body, weight gain. Um, I was dealing with an emotional type of up and down that I never experienced in my life. And I think that was partly due to I'm really 100% and no support system. That shock, like, woke up the postpartum in my body, like that I really didn't
Right.
experience
Mm.
much. So yeah, wild.
Mm. So let's go back a little bit. So with you doing all of that traveling, right? What
Yeah.
was that like mentally going through that process of knowing that, like we spoke about sacrifices a little bit, but sacrificing for your goals? What was that mindset and that process like for you to know that I'm going to make this sacrifice? I may be away from my child for a certain amount of time, but I'm still going to stay connected to them. But this is what I need to do to prepare for the future that I want for him to have.
Great. That was an amazing question. At first I was, I don't know how I would say it. At first I wasn't accepting, you know, leaving. It felt like like I'm betraying my son. He should have these years with me. Um, So at first, no, it wasn't oh, I'm doing this for my career, my life, for my child. None of it. It was, what am I doing? This is horrible. Like he needs to be with me. And I tried to figure out how can I have him on set with me, but I was just doing too much. My child could not be on a set with me. Um, that transition mentally, emotionally was a process. As I mentioned, it wasn't as easy in the beginning, but once I started to realize who I am, the more I poured into me. And because I had what I had, that there was no turning back. And that my son truly needed my child truly needed the best of who I can be.
Mm,
So pursuing my career was the best of who I could be. Um, and that was actually when I started my relationship with God, because in that moment, um, traveling a lot, transitioning back into my career, it was a toll on my identity.
mm,
I think a lot of new moms can be like, who am I? What is my body doing? Things I could wear, honey, I was not wearing again. The energy I had, honey, it was not there. was it was gone. Um, so that took a toll on me to even find out who I was. So I swear, like before I became pregnant and went through the motherhood, I was budding in the industry. I knew what I wanted. This was my place. But the moment I became a mom and went back, I almost felt different. Like, I don't want to be on set 16 hours. And it really wasn't because I had a child. It was, I realized that being a creative, it it puts you in a place of it's a platform, and it's also it's a gift, but it also puts you in a place where it demands your time. So that gift that you're given, you're supposed to give. And I felt like after I had my son, I didn't know that at the time, but God had transitioned the direction. So I was doing sets, music videos, and I started to like look around like, I'm here. Like, what's happening here? What's happening? Um, so I think my identity changed. I think the things that I wanted um as a new mom completely changed the minute, I would say, 6 months after I had my son. I looked at the career path. I looked at even positions. So let's say I was assistant directing, directing and producing. Um, Now I wanted to get into writing my own scripts and actually putting on the whole production itself versus just playing a role. So it turned into not only changing and pivoting where I was, it elevated, my creativity. So, yeah.
And I've heard other mothers say that where
Really?
motherhood has sparked a new creative lens for them, where it's like the way they see life, the way that they see their career, the way they see art, period, change because of having a child.
Completely. I'm like, and I think as they grow, it gets more and more and more. It's like, yeah, I don't have the words for it, but definitely I felt like I wanted to do more. I wanted to be more purposeful,
Mm,
and intentional. I
mm,
think that's the best way. It wasn't really about, oh, I need to be the top of this. I needed to be the producer. I needed to be the one who wrote it. You saw their name, in the credits. It wasn't that. It was when my son sees what I've sown and the harvest from it,
mm,
what I did with my hands, with my mind. Um, Ultimately, I want him to be able to take from that the way that I worked, how I worked with people, how I started from the bottom. I was the one in the studio, and you got to keep in mind I navigated 4 or 5 different industries, music industry. I was I was this intern. I was scrubbing toilets. I did all of the things. I did the toilets, you know, but I also was given the key after a certain amount of time to go into that studio in and out as much as I please and engineer, break down the sessions, break down the software, the computers, engineer, mix for top artists, but it started from scrubbing them toilets, you know? And I look at motherhood like that as well. It's you start one way, and the smaller you're at 6 months, wait till your child is 14 years old. How you're starting from here, and it just elevates in ideas, and once you see their creativity and what they take from you, gift given from God, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Beautiful. So let's talk about that trajectory, right? So
Okay.
once as for the 4 and 5 year olds stage for you, what was that like in terms of, like you said, like now sadly the support system started to diminish, and now
Yeah.
you're back
Yeah.
doing full time and all that stuff. At
Right.
what point was it where, like, you know what, I want to go more into education, I want to become a professor?
That came in when I realized 4 or 5, your child needs you there. You have to be there more. You know, they're talking your ear off. They're telling you everything they want to be. And actually, at that time, and I would say this to any mother, like once you see, especially if you're really gifted and talented, and you know, if you're musically like inclined, like above average or whatever the case may be, um, watch your kid. And that was when I saw my son. He was drawing. We're artists. So as I mentioned, was grateful and blessed to span 4 different industries. So music, um, film and television, and what did I do? I did art. So I was in the creative art space, and then of course, design, brand, and tech. But when I started to notice, wow, 4 or 5 years old, even though I'm doing this over here, I'm a professor at the time. Um, uh, I noticed he was talented and in his 4 or 5 year old version, but I wasn't sure what I was seeing. I wasn't sure if I was fooling myself, like, every mom thinks their kid's so cute. So I was like, no, he's not cute. He can't draw. He's not talented. And then I would just start to see certain things like he really is. So he can act. And part of me, because I came from film and television, came from those worlds, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want him to do that because that's a lot. And that would mean I would have to be back on set with him. Oh, don't want to do it. Um, at that time, while I'm teaching, I'm nurturing his gifts. I'm starting to realize like I need to hone in. So I was getting him in casting calls on set. It was natural for him. Um, I started to realize he was an artist. He could draw as well. Started to get into that. And once I realized that psychologically, I didn't realize what was also happening was part of the creative space that you were in before your child, you slightly tend to push them in that direction.
Mm.
So part of me started to see, okay, he's gifted, but then I had to realize, am I pushing my child into this because I want to live through him? And also asking the question, God, like, as a mom, how do you push your kids and nurture them into what they don't even know they want? So how it's like a fine line of I'm making him do it, and then also as a mother, you are supposed to put yourself in a position to nurture that gift in them. And so I was kind of like caught in between. I would take him to sessions or auditions, and he'll be so nervous, like, Mom, why am I doing this? I don't want to do it. And then gets in there and kills it. And I'm like, kid, come on. So at that time, navigating that space, I would say for a 4 or 5 year old, me working, I spent a lot of time putting him in opportunities, a lot, sports, acting, writing. We took trips. I wanted to see the span of his creative ability at 4 or 5 so that I knew what he liked. And then I also knew, okay, this is the direction we're going to nurture. So that's when everything starts to change. Yeah.
And so how did that also influence the trajectory of you doing things outside of just education and diving into the tech and all the other opportunities?
You and these questions. Okay, these questions. I would say, um, how did that? That's a great question. How did I navigate into those spaces? Um, I think after 4 or 5, he's growing. I'm starting to see his own identity. For me, I think I, just like I mentioned, after becoming a mom, the pivot or that I want something different. I think when you have outgrown a stage or a phase,
Mm.
or a season. What would they call it? A season. Or for me, it was industries. I had a joke, and this is when I discovered I used to rationalize how I would jump from doing a film, um, something for a major network, and then jump back into this or that. I used to call it creative ADHD. I don't know if that's the
Mm.
thing, but it was mine. Okay. That's how I would rationalize how I would be a mom, be on set, be a professor, then start a business. Like it was the most, but I would just rationalize it. It was like, I got creative ADHD. And it gave me life to be able to do it all. But for me, how I transitioned was it was more so I had outgrown and I felt it. I outgrew, I wouldn't say music. I love music. It will always be a part of me, but I transitioned um, into, of course, teaching and education. And then when my mother passed away, it was like the mourning process needed. And I kind of stepped away from teaching at that time. And I said, and I give a lot of people this story. It was like, how did you become in design and tech? It wasn't planned. Not, B, I didn't plan this. Mourning my mother, I realized, wow, I, I need time. So I took some time away from teaching because I always felt, as a professor or educator, I was passionate about giving back and making sure my students were they edified, or making
Mm.
sure that they had opportunities, fully me, and I didn't feel like I was fully me. So I took this time off, and then I realized, oh, how your bills gonna get paid, girl? How these big bills gonna get paid? And then I have this 5, 6, 7-year-old at the time. I'm like, you can't just be crying all day and your lights could be off. Like, so really that transition into design and tech did not happen because I'm like, oh, I need to go get some design classes. It really happened because I needed to tap into the talents, the gifts that I had that would cost me no money to try to get a formal education that I can do now to pay bills. And where I don't think this is the best way to launch into a career, that was my understanding of why I started. And at the time, I said, you know what? My grandfather taught me art, creative. You remember I told you he taught me these how to do all these parts. Well, at the time, I didn't realize. I was like, why I gotta learn that? Why do I gotta do that? Why am I in your art studio watching you do G clay paintings, graphics? Well, why? Because that's eventually what my business became.
Mm.
That was what I remembered how to do. And at that time, I started my brand agency, or word of mouth. Hey, I could do your logos. I could do your banners, da 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 da. And it sucked at first. It was horrible. And then I launched in and I realized, okay, you can do this. And then I think I took on my first, I think it was $30,000, $40,000 client as a newbie on a laptop. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I hear you guys. Okay, I see what you're doing here. But then once I realized the transition, you remember I told you that that season was over and I'm in a new one. I'm really big on making sure that I learned everything that I could. So I made sure I had, even though I was doing it on my laptop, I made sure I studied the greats in that world, the brand and tech world, who were the top of the top. And I'm doing all this alongside my son. Now, keep in mind, I'm making him watch me with all of this. Like, you sit right there, he'd be like, Ma, I just want to play my game. So he would watch me design, he would watch me and listen to me speak with clients. He would even see those days where clients didn't sign and how I reacted. And that was the beginning of being an entrepreneur and starting my business, learning people's personalities and realizing rejection. And it wasn't rejection. It was no, you're not a fit for that client. Learning how to organize and brand myself in a way that my quality match what I actually showed and,
Mm.
what I gave. It was a learning process, but that's how I transitioned into brand. And I would say my brand agency. Tech came later when I started realizing that a lot of clients need more than just a beautiful face, or just a nice banner or a nice website. They need the system that runs it. I needed the system because I had a kid and I needed to keep checking my emails and check my social. I need something to do this for me. And I didn't have the means or so much of the funds to hire this whole big team. So I started to realize I need to take my brand and also add tech to it so that I'm creating a business or an agency for a mom, a corporation, a company like me who needs it. So that's how it transitioned.
And I think that's even beautiful because now that we're in this new role of entrepreneurship and motherhood, we need framework, right? We need systems in place. We need automations. We need things to be able to run if we're not be able to be on the move, right? And I
Yeah.
think you being able to dive into something like that, it's something that we don't even consider or think about how important we need it in our life.
Yes, we need it. And I think the beauty in what I did was, and I tell this, to do brand, you're really telling someone else's story. So brands is a story. It is how you want people to view you, how you want them to revere you, how they speak to you, you so a brand is your story. And I realized, wow, people are coming to me to create their brands. What is my story? And I realized I created my business out of my story. I want to create a company that helps people like me. And I think that was the biggest like catapult for the type of clientele that I got. I got clients just like me. I had your everyday business woman, married, but she was taking care of the husband, the house, the this, the that. And the truth of the matter is, she has this amazing idea. She even may have the budget for it, but she doesn't have the time. She can't do any more than she has. Her family is on a routine. Her business needs to be on one. So I was like, okay, this makes sense. And this type of client is luxury. So not only do they want to look good, they want it to operate amazing. And then you would get your startup, your tech agencies who needed someone that not only, this was the biggest thing that I ran into, they need someone not only that could design an amazing app, um, but they wanted an all in, meaning nowadays you're paying 50 grand or 50 this for a developer and the designer.
Mm.
And I started to realize, wow, that's where my grandfather was teaching me all these roles. I became a one-stop shop where people could get the brand, they could get the tech, their business is operating and it looks amazing all in one. So, but that's my life because I want to look good. I want to look like luxury, but then I also want to give great customer service. And I want to make sure that people come back to me. And I've had repeat clients throughout the years off of that. I stand on that. Yeah.
And now with doing all of that, how do you find balance?
Oh, you're so funny. Yeah, you're so funny. That's a great question. Um, Honestly, I make it. I make
Mm.
balance. This is a good question. Don't get me to lying, girl. I don't. My relationship with God is the only way I find balance.
Mm.
He sits me down. Because I want to to go back, when I started creating for the clients, those different people that kind of look like me, but in different industries, music, tech, you name it, I didn't start off understanding how that worked. And sometimes it was horrible. I didn't understand the client's need at the time, and I messed up so much. I didn't communicate um correctly, or um so there was a process of, even though I understood I was receiving the clients that needed what I had, I'll always go back to identity. Until I knew what my story was, I couldn't service them. I couldn't. And so I hit my head a lot of times. I made so many mistakes. Um, but through those, not getting this contract right or this or that, I was able to get to the point where, oh, I get it, and I get it really good. And then that got to the point where I had to learn balance, because now I got it good. Everybody wants access. Everyone wants my time 24/7. And that was the biggest thing that I had to learn. Um, and I call it a buffer. I had to create a system that protected me so that I can have time for me and my son. I didn't have that. That was one of the things that I learned in the bump of my head. I would allow a client to have full access to me because I just wanted them to be happy. I wanted the brand to look amazing. And I started to realize it was taking so much out of me. And I'm like, this can't be the way it's supposed to go. Like, how do entrepreneurs do this? I mean, word of mouth is great. I didn't have to promote, but something's off. I had to find the balance. So I pulled back. Um, of course, my relationship with God kind of sat me down, and I had to write down the areas where of the things that I needed. First, it was
Mhm.
my family, my family, my son. And then it was finding out that the agency or the industry, the career that I had was only one part of Carmen. I was still a mom. I was still the entrepreneur. I was still the professor. But then later I realized that none of those titles mattered if I was depleted. Actually, those titles don't matter at all. Like, I'm not a title person. I had to find and create boundaries in my business. And at first, oh, they did not like it. Ooh. Well, you were always accessible to me now. Why the change? Why the hours? And that was hard. It was hard to explain. Look, I have a life. Um, so yeah, I had to create the boundaries, office hours. I had to have vacation days. Even though my vacations, I was still working on their project, they just didn't know, you know? Um, and then I had to have more intentional time with my son, because really he pulled me away from getting so drowned into what I would love. Like, I love my work, but it became one dimensional. So yeah, boundaries.
And so what would you say to the entrepreneur, to the mom that's afraid of setting those boundaries or having those hard conversations with clients?
Oh, wow. What would I say? I think I wouldn't say it's an age thing, because I think anyone struggles with setting boundaries. But I think specifically for an entrepreneur, you've never been one before, just like you've never been a mom before. So you don't even know you don't have boundaries. So what I would say is, it almost is like a prerequisite to any entrepreneur. So I think if you study or understand to be an entrepreneur, you have to start off with it.
Mm.
So I would say to them, I don't know where you are in your business. If you are, this would really go to those who are thinking about starting a business. Understand that setting boundaries from the beginning is how you start your business. It's not just the EIN to trademark the name. That's what you have to set in from the beginning. So that's definitely one. Um, and I would say identity. I'm not trying to preach to anyone, but understanding who you are takes away from the peaks and the valleys that you will experience. Um, because peaks and valleys really are your reaction or your response to life. And so I would say if you understand who you are, whose you are, that doesn't mean it's going to be easy and you can't be human. But a lot of those transitions with the clients mad at you, you might even get a lawsuit or two. Who knows? Um, Money is low or no clients at all. What saved me was how I responded to it and not reacted, because my saving grace is my son. He watches every response or reaction. And if ultimately you have a career, a business, you want to think about your impact. My impact is not my business. My gifts are not for me, they're for others. So I had to remember how I handle this, my son's going to handle all his situations like that. How I treat my client, even though, they probably didn't understand the situation, is going to extend far past me, whether this contract ends and they never work with me again, or if it's, if they decide to keep going. How you treat people is very important. So that's what I would say. Balance would be in knowing to set those boundaries as a default from the beginning when you create the business name, and also remembering how you respond, and or how you respond to situations. Try not to react, because peaks and valleys, honey, they will come.
And then one last question, piggyback off of that. What would you say to the mother that's going through that transition?
Oh, mom, I would say, you're not alone. And I would also say that if you were given the idea, if you're doubting the idea, if you're doubting even how to get there and how to navigate it, um, know that an idea, even if it's huge and you don't have the funds and the money or whatever the case may be, that the fact that you have that idea, you're supposed to go. And I don't really believe in doing it scared, because I don't have that spirit of fear. I just do it, but do it. And one big thing, and this is just something that I think as we transition, mommies, get out and meet people. We're not supposed to do it alone. You're not supposed to be tucked away in your house and, all by yourself. You get around people, and even when you feel sometimes like you want to isolate yourself, things aren't going right, that's actually when you should feel the inkling to just do it. Meet someone, sit down, because you never know. One thing I'm learning, the way God works with people, is it's fellowship. It's through meeting people. You never know that one person, just because you decided to get up, try not to have a bonnet on, try to be like, get on your thing, and just go out. You never know. It might be the person you meet in the store because you got to pick up some food for the kids, in a conversation. Or if someone B says, hey, let's do a quick tea, or just go, because you never know what that will lead to. I wouldn't say go looking for something, but start it, take the step, and get out. Do not allow what doesn't look right to determine what is and what will be. So do it, just do it, get out and meet people, and just go all the way.
Carmen, you've given so many gems on this call. I just want to thank you again for just one, sharing space with me, but giving me so much of your honesty, your vulnerability, and sharing your beautiful, encouraging, and motivating story. I'm excited that we reconnected, and I'm so excited for the women that are going to be able to listen to this and learn so much from your amazing story.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I know we got to get some work done. I'm so excited, but thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank, thank you.